because they don't need to technically win. Of course, they'll do everything to win.
Yeah.
But they can have the least amount of risk, I guess, in this position.
I tell you what, let's go ahead and get it started. Race number 3, the final race of upper bracket. Can Porsche Coanda come back? Let's find out. Lewis McGlade, Zach Sweeney, take it away for Spa.
If things finish as they stand, it will not be good enough. They're already racing around the first corner. It needs to be a 1-2-3 though for Porsche Coanda. We already begin racing as we head our way down the hill through Eau Rouge and Raidillon. It's Charlie Collins leading as he races his way up Eau Rouge, up Raidillon, and then up the Kemmel Straight. Slightly off the road goes Bennett. He drags off Dane Warren with him. They rejoin the circuit. Bit of contact between Porsche Coanda and Team Redline, and here comes through Joshua Rogers. He could make it 3 wide here as we've got side-by-side over the race lead. There's a spin for Porsche Coanda, and I think it might be over. Their chances of progressing through to the final without going into the lower bracket could have come to a close with that incident there.
Porsche Coanda are in trouble. Sebastian Job takes the race lead. Joshua Rogers gets sent round going into Lecom. Side by side between the two Virtus.pro cars in the background. I think that's McCormack versus Fiala as we make our way into Rivage. Kevin Ellis Jr. making some huge progress now up into 7th place, but that could spell disaster for Porsche Coanda. Sure, maybe they've got the chance in the lower bracket, but they do not want to be throwing that lifeline. They want to be comfortable. R1 competition will always throw a curveball, and it's happened right here at Spa.
Redline regaining control of the Esports World Cup here in Rennsport. The dominant performance of 2024 is just starting to show through the cracks once more. They are on top of the points here in the upper bracket. If everything finishes as it stands, it will be 136 points for Redline, 100 points for Virtus.pro, and Porsche Coanda with a trip to the lower brackets will be finishing on 70 points if it finishes as it stands. I don't know at the moment if a 1-2-3 is good enough. I don't think it is. I think even if Collins finishes first, Warren second, Caruso third, I don't think it's good enough.
And that's providing on the fact and banking on the fact that Ellis Jr., McCormack, Fiala all finish at the back of the field. Let's take a look as to how Rogers spun. There's side by side for the lead, and I think it was just so many cars trying to fit onto the same piece of tarmac. That's Bennett on the inside. Was it teammate? Civil war?
It was teammate. There was contact there between Caruso and Rogers, and you can see the frustration there behind the scenes at Porsche Coanda for Luke Pennington, who is on the desk. He is the coach of Porsche Coanda. I mean, frustrated. It's all gone up in smoke.
Yeah. You'd be fuming, right? That is the last thing as a team that you need. We've been talking about working together as a cohesive contingent of 4. As a huge slap of oversteer there from Charlie Collins, maybe a tap from the rear end from Kevin Siggy, but he didn't look close enough to really influence the Porsche's line. Through Eau Rouge, through Raidillon, a big compression as you go up the hill. Got to be careful with your ride height as to not bottom out the car too much. Shouldn't be too much of a problem for the Porsche, and now he's got a good run in the slipstream, but Kevin Siggy is closing, and closing very fast. Uphill now towards Lecom, pulls out to the right-hand side. Porsche Coanda near powerless for their fate.
Yeah, but he needs more assistance. He needs teammates. Just Charlie Collins, he needs them around him. Now there's contact, and there's a spin into the barrier. It is over for Porsche Coanda. Contact between Collins and Kevin Siggy rather, pushes Collins into the barrier, pushes Porsche Coanda into 11th and 12th, pushes Porsche Coanda into the lower bracket.
Of course, motorsport will always deliver right to the checkered flag, but you have to be worried about the chances of Porsche Coanda. They've got to be in the points of percentages, 0.5%, whatever it is. It's looking increasingly unlikely they find their way through. I mean, the bittersweet moment is now Dane Warren is on the podium, but I don't think he's going to care too much about that. They'd want to only do 3 races today. It looks like they're going to be doing all 6. The good news for them, the lower bracket looks to be a bit more favourable for them. This is how it happened though to Lecom.
Yeah, so what? There was a little bit of a brush there, and then there was a more tap behind. Look, that was super awkward. We're going to ride on board here with Kevin Siggy. You can see the leading as he's tried correcting it. He's then gone into the side of Collins. That is not an easy one. There's Jamie Fluke. Now, I was talking to some various people before we went into this, well, as we were going into this bracket. I'm not going to name names or anything like that, but there was a little bit of murmuring out there in the SMB arena that potentially Porsche Coanda are the favourites to not go through, and not the ones to go into the lower bracket. So some people have expected this. I didn't.
Honestly, I think coming into the competition, it wasn't going to be the case. I think Redline and Coanda were the favourites, and I think the general consensus, especially amongst us in the commentary booth, was, yeah, I mean, the upper bracket is probably going to be Redline and Coanda, and then they're going to fight for scraps for 3rd place between the rest of the teams. That was the consensus I was going with, and so far the narrative has supported that idea. But you've got to turn up on the day. Right now, Porsche Coanda haven't. In fairness, Jeddah, Daytona haven't been the best tracks historically for Porsche in the way their car handles. Spa, though, definitely is, and they're not capitalising on that opportunity.
Don't worry, we'll be hearing the lovely insights once again of Jamie Fluke, this time though as a commentator in race number 4. We'll catch up with that a bit later on. That's the next race after this. My goodness, it's flying through today, isn't it? As here we go, attack for the second position and maybe even for the race lead coming in from Dane Warren. Onto the brakes, flicking it into the right-hander as they go into Les Combes. More brushing, more contact between Redline and Coanda. Dane Warren just trying to at least give some confidence to the Coanda team as they head their way into the lower bracket. A little bit more of contact as they come out of Malmedy. A little bit more contact as they head their way through the right-hander at Ravage. It is Dane Warren up to second position. It is Jordan Caruso knocking at the door, all trying to wrestle their way past Bennett.
They have to be so careful here, Porsche Coanda, as that's a huge bit of bump there from Luke Bennett on the exit of no-name corner. That's going to open the door for Jordan Caruso to the inside of Pouon. Has the BMW got the agility to go the long way around? That's quite impressive. 2 wheels nearly off the circuit, but I think just keeping it within the confines of the circuit. Now over the inside for the Piff-Paff chicane, and in the end Jordan Caruso has to concede that position. Kevin Siggy now knocking on his door. But like I was saying, they have to be careful here because penalty points could influence them if they make it through into the final tomorrow. That's going to put them even further on the back foot if they pick up a quali back.
Let's see about this move then from Warren. So the rubbing continued basically all the way through this sector. So there was a little bit of a brush, a little bit of a brush, a little bit more of a brush. God, they do race them like touring cars, don't they? Still around the outside of Malmedy as Dane Warren was trying to give just about enough room, sliding that rear end around. Luke Bennett was dropped back into third. Dane Warren moving up then into second. And we ride on board with Jordan Caruso trying to make things a little bit worse for Luke Bennett. It won't matter too much for Team Redline right now. The one thing they can't risk is any real penalty points. They don't want to put themselves into a bad position, maybe even risk a quali ban later on, especially in tomorrow's racing.
Yeah, exactly like I was saying, they really cannot start even further on the back foot. They're already going to be sort of demoralised, and while they are strong as a team, defensive goes Jordan Caruso, not really what you want to do into La Source because it compromises your exit. And you've now got 2 kilometres where your foot is flat to the floor. That's going to give the advantage to Kevin Siggy. Kevin Ellis Jr. as well in the background. Darren McCormack making some good progress. So even though Virtus.pro didn't really have the best qualifying, in fact, they had the worst qualifying they could ask for, at least they're making some steady headway through. And at the moment, due to the qualms going on in the Porsche Coanda camp, they've been able to sit fairly comfortably in this point standings.
Yeah, right now it'll be fine for Virtus.pro. They'll be going straight through into the finals. They'll only need to do 3 races, but here we go with a little bit of 3 wide as they head their way into Les Combes, but he does back out of it. Does the red line man. They go their way through. It's Jordan Caruso fending off Bennett and Siggy. It was Siggy that was looking to make it 3 wide. However, he did back out of it. He did hold fire, and he almost tapped the rear end of his teammate there in the braking zone into Ravage.
Yeah, right now Redline are pretty safe. I mean, Collins and Rogers right at the back of the field. They're 5 seconds off the next car. I mean, at the moment, Collins is only scoring 1 point, Rogers scoring 0, adding to his woes of not scoring at Daytona as well. Of course, involved in an incident, involved again in a slightly different incident here at Spa. But I mean, maybe you could say it's been a bit of misfortune. Maybe you could say they've not really arrived in terms of the driving skill. Would they have even been in that position? Could they have qualified a bit better? Of course, in racing, there's so many shoulda, coulda, woulda, but you've got to live in the absolutes. You've got to live in the right now. And well, right now, Porsche Coanda haven't been driving the way that we would expect them to. Virtus.pro, though, I have to say, super impressive after being on the cusp yesterday.
Yeah, let's see more of this race. There was Siggy in the number 1 car looking to the inside. Again, a big move to the outside as they'd go side by side through Les Combes, and a great move coming in from Caruso. Points at the moment, if you really care, even though it's all basically set. BMW Team Redline, Red Bull Sim Racing, 132 points. Virtus.pro, 105. Porsche Coanda Esports Racing Team, it might be nice, but it's not going to be good enough. 69 is their points at the moment, and that will mean they are definitely heading in to the lower bracket, and there's honestly nothing they can really do. Collins 5 seconds behind gaining any more points. Joshua Rogers a further 2 seconds behind that.
Yeah, Sebastian Joe, by the way, in completely clear air has just set what would be far good enough for pole, 2:14.4. We saw the same at Daytona, we saw the same at Jeddah. Speaking to Jamie Fluke, and his insight was that, of course, the tyres feel good over a race distance. They don't really burn out too much, but of course that fuel load goes down further and further down, which gives you a lighter car, gives you a quicker car, and Sebastian Joe out in front is flying.
You can see at the bottom of your screen, you've got all 4 of the red line drivers. Left-hand side is Rietveld, then it's Luke Bennett, then it's Kevin Siggy with that distinctive moustache, that's why it's called Mustachio, and Sebastian Job, furthest right of your screen. The battle we're seeing is actually, who is that? Is that Luke Bennett getting past Jordan Caruso? I can count, my goodness. Luke Bennett working his way through then into 3rd position. Kevin Siggy is now behind and looking for a potential pass on Caruso as well.
Yeah, indeed so. So Redline, it's just going better for them. Coanda, it's just going worse and worse. And I mean, even in this race, right, they've still got to push on. Yeah, they want to minimise the risk of penalty points, but they still want to push on to prove their pace. This is their circuit, Spa. 18 wins for Rogers. Of course, it's the best circuit for also Collins and also Caruso statistically as well. That's where they've got most of their victories in R1 competition. They need this confidence boost going in to tomorrow, if they even make it there, that they can compete, that they know in their heads that they've still got it. Even if they go into the lower bracket not knowing they're going to make it, not knowing they're good enough, that could then even further exaggerate the problem and maybe even give us a shock of Porsche Coanda being completely out of this competition. It's unlikely, but the way things are going today, I wouldn't be overly surprised.
Well, the battle for the podium between Bennett and Caruso, between the 2 teams who have names long enough to break out timing graphics. You can see Bennett at the moment in that 3rd position. Caruso currently sitting in 4th. I think Caruso, though, might be looking a little bit more backwards, might be looking at the Drivers' Champion of the Esports World Cup back in 2024. It might be Kevin Siggy trying to make that move as they work their way down into bus stop. Can there be the overtake? Can there be the overtaking attempt coming in from Kevin Siggy? He's not going to have an opportunity just yet. He's so close, though, to the rear end of Caruso.
Yeah, fielding the #1 on his car, probably in celebration of winning that Drivers' Championship in 2024. Kevin Siggy has to be in the conversation for one of the best sim racers in the world. He rises to another level, keeps his composure, and right now is playing such a strong team game. And like we've been saying pretty much in every shutter that we've been at the end of every day, we've been talking about how important it is to work as a 4, and Redline do it better than anyone else. They're always communicating, always working together. And in the slipstream there you can see Luke Bennett, that move that he made not too long ago on Jordan Caruso. It's the inside line heading up the hill towards Les Combes, and it was done far before the corner. A little bit of help from slipstream, a little bit of help from the side draft. Side by side once again, Jordan Caruso at threat from losing another position. In fact, actually no, he's making a position back on Luke Bennett, gets his way back onto the podium.
Goodness me, things go from bad to worse for Porsche Coanda. There is a 3-second time penalty for Dane Warren and 4 penalty points. This upper bracket has been, as Neros makes no difference, a disaster for Porsche Coanda, a team that we expect to be scoring on average around, what, a bare minimum 35, 40 points a race. They are scoring on average, in the 3 races we've had so far, 21.7. They have a whopping, get this, 16 penalty points at the moment. Yesterday, when Vitality just about knocked out Mouse, they had 15 penalty points. That was in 4 races. They've done more in less.
Yeah, that is true. If you extrapolate the data, they've done, what, this is now their 3rd race, right? So they're probably on course, if they did 4 races, to be scoring in around about 20 penalty points, which is huge. And that could make the difference, right? 20 penalty points. That's equivalent to finishing 2nd place in a race. That's a huge amount of points. Obviously, right now, if you took all of those away, it still wouldn't be good enough for them to make their way straight into the finals. But you have to think of what could have been for Porsche Coanda, maybe a bit of better luck, maybe a bit of better driving on the part. I don't want to say that, you know, too heavily, because all 4 of them are fantastic, but today they've just really not hooked it up.
They've not hit their stride. They need a redemption arc, and unfortunately, in a sense for them, redemption is potentially not too far away. Arguably, it's potentially even too close, because again, they'll be racing in the lower bracket. They'll have the negativity of what's happened here in the upper bracket deep in their mind, with 1 final lap left to complete in the upper bracket. At the moment, going straight through into the final, it will be Team Redline, it will be Virtus.pro, and Porsche Coanda will go to the lower bracket, where they'll have to dust it all off. They'll have to focus their attention ahead, and they'll have to secure their place in the final by doing it the hard way, by taking on Williams and by taking on Vitality.
Here comes the move from Luke Bennett, though. This is for the podium place. This is basically just to rub salt in the wound to Coanda. This is to make a statement, and you can see there Jordan Crusoe darting to the right-hand side. That's to minimise the side draft effect, so he can immediately tuck back in behind Luke Bennett and get back into the slipstream. This is the final lap of the race. Virtus.pro, what a story that is. I mean, we talk about Williams and their ascension from being on the last cusp of maybe even being knocked out on day one to maybe making it to the finals today. But Virtus.pro today, I mean, they were on the cusp yesterday. That fight between themselves, Vitality and Mouse, one of them was going straight out of the competition. One of them was making their way into the upper bracket. Not only have they done that, they've arrived on the day and they've made a shock display of form, and they're now going to make their way straight into the final day of R1 competition here at the Esports World Cup in 2025. That's important not only here, because at worst, if they finish second tomorrow, that's $100,000 of prize money, but also it does them a lot of favours when it comes to the club championship, and that is worth millions.
Indeed, and you know, for teams like Virtus.pro, for teams like obviously what we'll see later on, Vitality, the points they score here in this championship here in Rennsport R1 is good for them in the club championship, because it's obviously all these games are basically pieced together into one big club championship. If you didn't know already, we will be the first final here on the opening final weekend of 2025 in the Esports World Cup. That's getting a bit ahead of ourselves, though, as we work our way through into the final complex of corners. Sebastian Job is about to take his 9th victory at the Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps, an important one for BMW M Team Redline Red Bull Sim Racing as they book their place in the final. They will be joined at the moment by Virtus.pro as we cross the line. An absolute disaster for Porsche Coanda Esports Racing Team. However, they will get a second chance at it. They will head to the lower bracket. They will take on the Atlassian Williams Sim Racing Team. They will take on Team Vitality. But the talking point at the moment is Redline are back on top.
A statement of intent from Team Redline. They started a little bit shaky, but they picked